Joining us now, a former Congresswoman who I served in Congress with, Tulsi Gabbard, is a Fox News contributor. She knows about putting her country before her party, and she joins us now. Tulsi, it's always good to chat with you. Always good to see you.
Likewise.
What's your take on what's happening here? Because this doesn't look like democracy. They want to bypass all those voters and do whatever the heck they want.
Well, you'll remember, Jason, that they didn't really have a Democratic primary at all. They didn't give Democrat voters in that primary an option. But here we find ourselves as we see all of this inner squabbling happening amongst Democrats and influential people in the Democratic sphere about whether or not Joe Biden should remain the nominee or whether they should swap him out. And you look at why this infighting is happening. It's because they don't really care about what's best for the country. Quite frankly, when you look at it, really, they don't really care about Joe Biden. This isn't about loyalty to Joe Biden. They're trying to figure out how best they can stay in power. So they're trying to figure out, is Joe Biden that winning horse, or do they need to put him out to pasture and find someone else that they believe can win, who will also be a figurehead that they can be the puppet masters for and control. So you pointed out Jill and Hunter Biden, but really I think there's something far more serious going on here about who's really in control. Clearly, Joe Biden showed the country in the debate that he is incapable of being the president and commander-in-chief, clearly is not calling the shots. So we should all be asking who is really calling the shots. And it's what we know to be the deep state. It's those who are in unelected positions, whether they be political figures, the military-industrial complex, the national security state, their friends in the propaganda media, everyone who gets their power by knowing that they can control this figurehead, which is why they're doing all they can to destroy Trump, because they know that he will expose them and dismantle their power.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. These puppeteers, they don't want to be pushed off to the side. I mean, that is clear. You see a lot of discussion on X out there, but I tell you, a lot of it isn't about the incompetency, the ability to physically and mentally do the job. It's whether or not they can win an election. That's what they seem to be much more concerned about. Now, President Biden is going to come out and talk about this. As soon as he comes out, we will bring it to you live. But what do you think the president's going to say about this latest Supreme Court ruling? Is this him trying to show vigor after 4 p.m.?
It seems to be the case, given how limited his exposure is to the media and, frankly, to the country normally. But, you know, as we've seen, he will likely be reading off of a teleprompter and once again, just pointing to the fact that you know, he's not the guy. He's not the guy who's in charge. And like you said, Jason, the powers that be in the Democrat elite are concerned about winning, which is why when you look at some of the names that they're putting forward, whether it be Kamala Harris or Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or any of these others, they're not talking about how these people differ on issues or agree on issues. They're not talking about issues at all, because they know that regardless of which one of them they pick to be their horse, they're all going to continue to follow the instructions of the unelected shadow government that is in place. And again, whose power is being threatened by Donald Trump.
I just want to remind people that President Biden's going to come out and make an address about this latest Supreme Court ruling. As soon as that comes out, we will bring it to you live. Tulsi, I want to show you actually one more ad that the Democrats are actually putting out now and get your reaction to this ad that they're putting out. Watch this.
Folks, I know I'm not a young man, but I know how to do this job. I know right from wrong. I know how to tell the truth. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up. I mean, what's your take on that, Tulsi?
You know, they're picking and choosing these sound bites once again, just blatantly lying to the American people. I'll give you just two brief examples from that debate where Joe Biden did not tell the truth. Number one is he said that no service member has been killed under his administration. As someone who still wears the uniform, that was a punch in the gut, because there are 18 service members who were killed while serving overseas under his watch, and for him to be so unaffected by their sacrifice and the sacrifice of their families is just absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Secondly, in the debate, he said that the only existential threat to humanity, is climate change, which again, as commander-in-chief, for him to not recognize that the greatest existential threat is nuclear war, which he has pushed us closer to than ever before in our country's history, is yet another piece of evidence of why he is unfit to serve in the office of the presidency.
Well, Tulsi, we want to thank you for your service to the country, and thanks for joining us tonight on the Ingraham Angle. Do appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.